content marketing on your own channels versus, it's the same principle, but it's a different approach. And I think it's easy to get lost in what people care about when you're on your own channels saying what you care about.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, you are never the audience. Just because you're pulling it together, just because you care about something might not be what your audience cares about. And for SMEs, where, as you say, they do have a bit more of an understanding of what makes their audience tick, it can be easier. But on the same tone, if you're all kind of thinking along the same lines, it can be harder as well to separate yourself from that. So I do think it's always best to get and obviously this is easier said than done, but it's always best to get a third party to look at it, because they can come with a completely fresh set of eyes that aren't tainted by any sort of internal bureaucracy or history or anything like that, to look at it and say, this is what you should be doing, this is what we think will work. And that doesn't have to be an agency, that doesn't have to be a costly third-party agency. It could be a freelance copywriter that comes in just to have a look and say, like, this is the story you should be telling. Any sort of copywriter worth their salt will be able to look at a broad set of seemingly disparate goals and materials and say, this is where your sweet spot is, this is the story that will go out. And I think it always helps to get someone with a fresh set of set of eyes in.
I think where it can go wrong a lot in SME is around we've got this set of messages, this is what we want to say. And you said around the fact that with your work, you guys can come in and say, actually, this is turning it into an advert. You've got to be, you've got to pull back a little bit. I think that's what's harder in an SME, is that if it's like, right, we need to get these messages in, your content can just turn into a series of adverts, because you've not got anyone that's that voice of reason saying, either call it an advert and deliver it like an advert, or call it content and pull back on the advertising. But it's easy to do internally when you haven't got, you there.
I think particularly as well, it's harder for SMEs because while I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but the budgets they are working with are often a lot smaller. And so that content has to work either a lot harder or has to serve multiple purposes. And there are occasions where it does have to be a broad awareness piece. You'll come across through a social post or searching or whatever, but then it needs to have that conversion element. So I think if you are putting sort of lead gen forms or conversion forms, whatever, on it, it needs to be done in a way that matches with the piece and doesn't jar. And you need to think about that user experience right from the very top, right down to the sort of final conversion, how that should flow, and make sure there aren't any giant leaps that people need to take, because those giant leaps are the places where people think, it's not worth the payoff, I won't do it. There needs to be some kind of clear value exchange at each step of the way in order to sort of hold people's hands nicely through the experience, not drag them along.